Hi everyone, myself Arindam Das and I'm a legal intern at LEXIS and Company. So today I'll be discussing on a Transfer of Property Act and will be giving the most of it on to fraudulent transfer. Now I guess every one of you have visited court once in your lifetime. If you have not, you might have seen a transfer of property happening in your own home. So there can be a fraud. There can be a fraud with the transfer of property, and that's where the term fraudulent transfer comes from. So section 53 of the Transfer of Property Act talks about fraudulent transfer. Now, section 53 clause 1 talks about that every transfer of immovable property made with an intent to defeat or delay the creditors of the transferor shall be voidable at the opinion of any creditor so defeated or delayed. Nothing in this subsection shall impair the rights of the transferee in good faith and for consideration. Nothing in this subsection shall affect any law for the time being in force related to insolvency. A suit instituted by a creditor which terms include a decree holder whether he has or has not applied for execution of his decree. To avoid a transfer on the ground that it has been made with intent to defeat or delay the creditor of the transferor shall be instituted on behalf of or for the benefit of all the creditors. Subclause 2 talks about that every transfer of immovable property made without the consideration with an intent to defraud a subsequent transferee shall be voidable at the option of such transferee. Now, for the purpose of this subsection, no transfer made without consideration shall be deemed to have been made with an intent to defraud by reason only that a subsequent transfer consideration was made. Now, the main objectives of section 53, the fraudulent transfer of the Transfer of Property Act 1882 are: to begin with, to shield the right of a bona fide purchaser for value. Furthermore, to empower the transfer to avoid any transaction of immovable property made by the transferor with the intent to defeat or delay the transfer. Final one, to make the asset of the transferor available to the general body of the transferee. Now, the essential factors consisting fraudulent transfer in the transfer of property under section 53 are that there should be a valid transfer of movable property, there should be a fraudulent transfer of property, there should be made with the purpose of intention of defeating or delaying the creditor, the motive of to defeat or delay the creditor must exist at the time of the transfer made by the transferor. The suit under section 53 must be bought by the creditor in a representative capacity. Now, this was all about section 53's technical things. Now let's go into detail and discuss the scope, the requirement, the extent and the applicability of section 53. The scope of section 53 is that the applications of the section will be in force even if the transfer does not defeat but only delays the creditor. There is a case law related to this. In the case is C. Abdul Shakur Sahib versus Arji Papa Rao. In the year of 1963, the fact that the entirely the debtor's property was not sold cannot be itself or by itself negative the applicability of this section unless there is a cogent proof that there is other property left sufficient in value and of easy availability to render the alienation of the question immaterials for the creditors. The requirement of this section is to avoid the possibilities of the retention of all benefits by the debtor. In case of Chokmal Bhandarvi versus DYCTO in the year of 1976, it was held that if a person proves challenges the validity of a transaction under section 53 of the Act, he has to prove that the document in question was executed with a clear intention to defraud or delay the creditor. Now let's come to the extent of this particular section. So in the case of Susila versus Anandilal in the year of 1983, the court stated that even though the section may not apply in terms, its principle would apply in cases of fraudulent transfer. So if the section cannot be applied in terms, the principle would still be applying or still be applicable in cases of fraudulent transfer. The applicability, the final point. So in the case of Mahendra versus Suraj Prasad in the year of 1957, the court held that the provisions of section 53 of this act came into operations only when the document is fraudulent, in the sense that though the transfer is real, the object was to defraud the creditors of the transferor. Thank you. I hope you liked the video. Please like, comment and subscribe to the channel.